You are now checking out
the Win Podcast,
where the everyday people
are the celebrities.
So let's get to know them.
Jumping right into it, I want to know, who are you?
I'm still trying to figure it out. Especially, especially in this pandemic, I learned a lot about myself. So formally, I am Anita Lisa Pierce, AKA now the mom of a beautiful, amazing 5-year-old. Now the wife. Most people can't believe I'm married. I'm like, damn, like y'all really trying to put me out there like I was really out in the streets, but I wasn't. And also now an entrepreneur and still, figuring out, some of the best ways that I can be like a better person. But I found out during this pandemic, I'm like, yeah, we're going to have to change some things about that. That's no longer working for you.
But I think that's great.
That's a never-ending journey,
Yeah.
You're constantly learning and growing.
I know for like me too, like during this pandemic, you learn a lot about yourself and certain things that you want to do, certain things you want to change. And I think that's great that, even at your age and any age, that you're still learning to evolve and where you could get better at. So that's always a plus. One thing that I always admired about you, not only just the support that you always have given me in your friendship, is the work that you do in your community. And I think that's always like stood out to me, is that you really cared about, we're both from Brownsville, but you really cared about the people in Brownsville and try to make a change. And I want to know, like, take us down the steps, because I know what made you care so much and what made you want to be a force in there to activate change for a positive.
My daughter. So my real engagement began when she was born. I was a person that would say, I really just slept in Brownsville. I would vote, sleep, eat, and then like hang out in other places besides my own community because, there were a lot of things that I didn't see within my community, like i.e., like eateries, like, brunch spots. So I would go outside of the community because I was just exposed to a lot of other things. And not to say that Brownsville is a bad place, because it has its pockets, I call it, right? But for the things that really wanted to keep me engaged, like the hanging out, and I would just go other places. So I started, I had to sit down, because when I had Savannah, it was just like, okay, so what am I going to do next, right? Because I've always had like this civic engagement in me, always volunteering, always doing something. And, motherhood reminds you that you need to kind of continue to give back. So I decided, like, what am I going to do? So my first 6 months of being a mother, I became unemployed. I also, was trying to figure out this whole motherhood thing, still figuring it out because there are different phases that I'm learning. And I just decided, you know what, there's some, maybe just figure out what to do in the community since I'm going to be home for a bit, right? And so the first thing I did was I joined the community board, and it's a online process that you have to go through. Either your current elected officials recommend you, or someone in the community recommends you, and then you put in an application online at the borough president's office. And so it took a while for my application to go through, so I didn't think anything of it. So I was still just trying to figure out, ways to be involved. Doing things with my neighbors, just telling them, civically, like, just to become aware of the other side instead of just living in a community that you can start to own and help to build, some of the changes that you see in your community. So it started with me when I had Savannah, and I just really started to trying to figure out how I can fit in within the community, because I felt like, even though I was born and raised, that I kind of like lost touch because I was always out of the community. I just literally slept there. And that's how I got my start.
Do you also there was also, I think there was a one time I saw, like, either on the news or there was an article about how, like, you had a woman's group of you guys used to walk like and exercise together, something like that. So was that was before Savannah or like after?
So that was around the time that connecting with the community board. So
Okay.
once I got approved on being with the community board, obviously I wanted to get rid of the baby weight, and I lived across the street from a park, and I would use it, but it was like, you go there, it wasn't scenic. It was just like, you're walking around the track.
Yeah.
And so I had gotten a notice from the community board, because again, only when I became engaged did I start receiving what was happening in the community. I was getting emails. I was, becoming more informed about some of the localized community-based organizations that was existing. So the group that I was a part of was We Run Brownsville, which is a women's group that two founders, Dion Grayman, and also oh my gosh, I forgot her name. She's gonna kill me. And Sheila, I can't think of her last name. It's escaping me. But they are
That's
the
fine.
two founders of We Run Brownsville. And so, as a part of my engagement, getting healthy, making new sisterly connections, we would go out. I ran my first 5K with them,
Nice.
and it became like a sisterhood. We would come, we would talk. I started to bring Savannah out. They got to know my family. And it was just a way of engaging and talking about the things within community, and also learning how as a group collectively that, we can help with, women's health issues, and also being advocates as well. But they're the two founders of We Run Brownsville that I was active in.
Okay. What you got involved in these organizations? Was there something that you did before you had your child that helped you with this, like getting involved with the community and giving all these resources to these people? Was there a foundation you had?
Besides being in the streets, oh yeah.
Oh, of course.
Because I feel like you
I felt like you
always gave a helping hand. Because when I first
Yeah.
met you, I was introduced to
even
you.
before your daughter.
You was a mentor to Tamara, which is a friend
Oh,
of mine. So I felt like you was always, I guess, like guiding someone or trying to help someone or be there for someone and be a positive light to other people.
so y'all gonna start making me cry, because every time I
Yes,
think
good,
about,
good.
you
I
know,
want the tears.
when I start think about, like,
I know,
my
Dora.
why, and like, why I do it, I think about my childhood. So I'm born and bred in Brownsville, and growing up, I was raised by my maternal grandmother. Shout out in heaven to Mary Smith, like she's the original OG. And so my mom, I don't know if I can't ask my mother, the whys about my childhood, because my mother is also deceased as well. And so that absence with my mother, my grandmother filled it. But, being a girl and I had my brother there, it wasn't the same, and, when I think about, how I grew up, I would always have to go places with my brother. Oh, gotta go places with my brother to the park. That's how I learned how to play basketball, because he was always in the park. And I couldn't go and like hang out because, as a young girl growing up, it's not perceivably safe for young girls to go out and run the street because of, fears of grandparents. So you always had to go with the brother or the cousin who was there. But finishing up high school, I had, like this desire to always want to help people, right? And I didn't, it wasn't quite developed yet, because I wasn't really exposed to what it really was like to help other people until, getting involved in high school, playing basketball. I finished high school at 17, and at 17, my grandmother passed away. So I'm like, if you think about what happens when your foundation is now really gone. And what I mean by foundation, because there were other people that was still there, like, my grandfather was still there, but we were not as close per se. And then I had aunts and uncles that, you know, when you're 17, for some reason, people thought you were an adult. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I just lost my
Still need help.
grandmother. I just, like, I didn't have a job. I finished high school. I got accepted to go away to school, but I was afraid because I didn't have a foundation. So I thought, right? So all those things played into key. And so I just kind of hung out. I finished high school, was hanging out, right? Didn't have any real direction. And so I had a high school boyfriend, and he went away to college. And so I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, you know, no direction. So he had this coach, and I'm like, because the coach passed away. He had this coach named Keith Sally. And when I mean this man was amazing to us, he took us under his wing, took me under his wing, and I became like one of his daughters, right? So during that time from like 17 to like, you know, probably about 18 and a half, 19, I just would go to, before my boyfriend went to college, I would like go to like their basketball games during the summer. And, you know, I knew how to play. So I would be like the only girl there, like, you know, just kind of like hanging out with them. But this man was like a bridge to life, right? And the reason why I say that is because he took us to church. And I was formerly a Jehovah's Witness. So, you know, if you know anything about that transition from being a Jehovah's Witness to now you're trying to figure out whether you're in the wrong space or whether you're in church, or am I going to die because I'm in church? Like that whole mentality was there. But he was so dope to us. He would take us places, you know, he would like talk to us, and he became like my bridge to like, you know, for me to be exposed differently to life, right? So I literally spent like almost a year before actually getting into college, just hanging out with the boys. I mean, literally, I was the only girl going to the, I remember we would go to the 63rd Street YMCA to play basketball. We would be in tournaments, like, but that's what kept us, right? And so when I think back of my why is because of that. Like somebody took a chance on us. This man had his own family, but he still had this heart to kind of, he was like the plug, you know, in terms of like exposing us. I remember when he took us to our first play. It was like this small little play like down in the village. And he was like, make sure y'all on time. And we ain't got to show up on time. Like, he left us, right? And then we had to figure out how to get there because he had, you know, told us where we were going. So we had to figure out how we riding trains. We looking crazy. We doing all these things. I mean, he took us to, you know, the rest of the pizzeria that's on, I don't even know if it's still really there because I don't go up that way. On Rockaway and near the train station, used to be a pizzeria there.
I know, I remember.
And we used to go in. And we used to go in and like stand, you know, get your pizza to the side, stand out. So he used to work around Bloomingdale's. And so he tells me, you know, let's meet up for lunch. So even though I had some exposure and experience to the city, it was nothing like being exposed to when you have someone like say, hey, you can sit down in a pizzeria. And I'm like, yo, like you can sit down in a pizzeria and nobody ain't like looking over you. And they got like the garlic and the pepper like on the table, like little things about life exposure. So when I had this time during quarantine, and, you know, Tamara and I and Angie and I have been really maintaining connections, right? So all the young people that are now wonderful adults, including yourself, because I still consider you one of my babies, like whatever.
You are. I am.
So have really made me understand, like, why am I doing this? It's not just about Savannah, right? Because, you know, I think Savannah watches me, right? She goes, oh, you're on your Zoom meetings and, you know, you getting dressed up as a businesswoman. And, you know, so all those things, I know that I'm like a real example to my child. But I also think back over the years of the number of young people who are now adults that y'all send me inboxes and I'm like, you know what? I can't. Y'all trying to get in my heart today. Like, it's not going to happen. But the long and short is my why is because someone took a chance on me.
Yeah.
And so because I feel like, we're all on this earth, we have gifts. I'm still developing mine, even though I'm mature, sexy.
Yeah.
Um, and I just know that part of me is not going away at all.
I
And
think
then
that's beautiful.
your
I,
other question, right? I know that I'm probably long-winded. Y'all probably like, this lady need to
no,
shut
this
up.
is
No,
great. I like
it's
this.
about you.
Yeah. This is about you.
So
That's about you.
So the other question is, I think when you and I met, Tamara, yeah, because you all were in college together.
Yeah.
Um, I met Tamara actually in high school, and I was actually the president of a nonprofit organization formerly known as Urban Bankers. And from now we're talking like in my early and late 20s, I was in banking, financial services for more than like maybe 17 years. But my early years was in civic engagement. My joys was when I was able to raise money and give away scholarships. That was so freaking amazing to me. Like, I was in many different corporations, meeting a number of different CEOs, and I was a little brown girl from Brownsville. Who would have known that,
Yep.
right? Who would have known? Like that was like a whoa moment. And I even looked back at like pictures and I was like, oh, I had all this hair and all this sexiness going on. I mean, my sexy is different now, but
It's still
But
there,
it's
girl. You
you
still
still
there.
sexy on another level.
So, so
Fine
yeah,
wine.
right. So yeah, that's how I'm thinking, but my real start got from Mr. Keith Sally, who is, in heaven now. And he took care of us. He took care of us. And it wasn't, and it's so unfortunate because I think now about, there's so many missed opportunities, right? And this is what I mean. Missed opportunities where you have people in the community that are not looking to be, inappropriate with young people, that are really looking to genuinely support them through their process. And because all that's happening with, the media, that's tainting the relationships of, what mentors could be like. He was a man. I was a young girl. That could have been perceived
That's
as
Yeah.
true.
totally inappropriate.
Yep.
But he wasn't. He was literally like a dad. And then, eventually I got to meet my other sisters that was a part of the crew. I was the only one that played basketball. But then there was other young women that we all gravitated to. I remember sitting on his stoop, we eating junk food, talking about our lives. And because he lived in East Flatbush. And that's where I got my start. That is where
It
I
makes sense.
pinpointed the why.
Yeah.
It makes sense
Nothing is
because every time that I met you, like I said, and when we hung out, I always felt a genuine gift of you wanting to help naturally, or just be there and be a friend. And it all makes sense that where it spawned from how, your childhood, and then having those people that did the same, for you that you do to others. And it came from a genuine place, now that you're looking for anything, and I think that's that is so beautiful, like I said before. And I think it is a gift. And it makes sense to me that, like, why you're the type of person that you are, that not only helping one-on-one with people, but a community, and showing them a different way. Like, there's many routes you can go. You can go this route. You can go this route. But you have to try, and you have to go there, and you have to support when you think you don't have to support. You actually do. I wanted to know the moment, because you said in the beginning, it was like, I just lived in Brownsville, I sleep there, and I just hung out. And then now you're in the community, you're part of these organizations and these committees and stuff like that. What did you learn the moment now that you started working and being part of those groups and making those positive changes? Like, what was a realization moment for you? Like, okay, now I'm no longer sleeping here, I'm actually a part of the neighborhood.
Um, so it's still a process, right? Because I still feel, I don't know why I feel this way, but I still feel like an outsider. I don't know if that makes any sense. And I still have to uncover and unpack why I feel like an outsider. Um, So the one thing that I recognize that when you are engaging with established community-based organizations that you were not initially a part of, and even though you're a part of the community, is that you have to build trust, right? Because for so long, when I think about what it means to, to be in Brownsville, be of it, I feel that a lot of times Brownsville is used as a test market for data. Everyone wants to know about, the same things, economics, you know, connected to poverty, healthcare issues, all of the above, right? But and they're coming in with dollars from the outside world, right? Outside meaning outside of the community,
Yeah.
and not really taking the time to understand that, we all want to live in a beautiful space. We all want safety. We all want health. That's not a foreign thing to us. People come in there like, oh, this is a social experiment. Oh, well,
Yeah.
maybe they want police. Well, maybe they want good health. Like, we don't want to die. Like, we ain't getting up and talking about, oh yeah, first thing we want to do, we want to go to the corner store
Yeah.
and die. That's not it.
Yeah.
Like, we want to be with our aunties and our nanas and our peoples. We want to hang out. We want to have things just like everyone else. So that was the first thing I realized, that I had to now deprogram what I was exposed to, right? Because I was exposed to everything corporate for so many years. When I mean, my family members always tease me. They're like, yo, you're not really from Brownsville. And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. I still cuss.
Yeah.
I still know how to throw hands.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted.
I still
get it
I still
twisted
be
here.
dancing at the block parties. I don't know what you
Yep. Yeah. So don't. But I've just been exposed differently.
Right.
And so I had to deprogram myself to understand that, I can't be forceful. I have to listen, right? Again, even though I'm there, born and raised, I have to listen, right? And so all of my, thoughts, biases that I may have had have gone away since I've been actively involved. And the people that I've come in contact with, a number of the community-based organizations are really dope people, like to the core, and they want to see things change. So I figure out how I can fit in, right? And then I offer my services, but it has to be built upon trust, right? So if I say that I'm going to do something, part of building trust is consistency, doing and making sure that you show up, right? If you don't show up, to me, that starts to break down the trust and get into the cycle of trauma, which I don't want to be the cause of that. So I try to, make sure that, no matter where I am in, or, because there are things that upset me, I'm like, oh, we could be showing up differently. Like, let's show up on time. Let's kind of, dispel some of the myths about,
Right.
individuals of color, right? We do show up to meetings. We do good work. The small businesses there, they have amazing things. It's just that they need different tools and different exposures, and also the relationships, right? You gotta have the relationships, whether it's connecting it directly to dollars or really exploring another nonprofit that has, resources that they yet not have. It's about just breaking down all of that and understanding at the end of the day, from my opinion, that we all can win, right? We all really can win. And if, most people just kind of tweak a little bit, I'm not saying you got to think like Anita, but just tweak it, just knowing that, if you're in business, right, you can have the same product but offer it a little bit differently. You can still support both of them. They may have a full clientele they may not be able to handle an additional customer, and you could go to the other person and still get the same thing but of a different level of service. So that's how I look at it now.
Right. You was gonna say something?
No.
I want to know I'm probably gonna say it wrong. The and your banner, the name is 11.
11375.
All right, I didn't want to mess it up. Come on, I'm still learning how to read.
It's my birthday, y'all.
Oh, my fault. I didn't want to mess it up. I want to make sure. I'm still learning how to read
I
over
was
here.
gonna ask her that too. But go ahead.
And that's the reason. That's part of the reason why I did it, because folks, y'all be forgetting my birthdays. I be wanting to cut y'all.
My
I be
fault.
wanting
Well,
to
I
cut
just
y'all.
met you, so I don't count.
Nah, you don't get a pass.
But I
If I'm
figured it
getting a
out.
beating, you get a
I was
beating
like,
too.
oh, that must be
Right.
okay.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
So
So what is
11375?
11375 besides
birthday.
it's your birthday? But what is it? And I've
Besides my
been seeing it, and I've been seeing the things that you post, and I want to know more about it. And happy birthday.
So
That's my sister's birthday, actually.
see, and we
I'll
and
never
we the
forget.
sweetest person. We the sweetest people out in the world.
Yeah,
Shout out to
good
Scorpios.
heart too. Yep.
And me and can be mean.
Oh
Ooh,
yeah.
That's why I be trying to live on the other side, always on the other side.
That's why you wasn't in Brownsville for a while, because you didn't want to wild out all the time. You had to go out. You had to go have your brunches, be nice.
That's why you're still trying to like see if you fit in because you don't want to.
Everything is a choice, so we always have a choice how we want to show up. So 11375 came out of transitioning from motherhood, being cut off from my last employer, and trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. What am I gonna do? So I initially started the business as conducting events within the community, hosting anybody who needed something done. I pretty much did it. If you needed a baby shower done, I got you. If you needed a wedding done, I didn't want to do it, but I did it because I initially wanted to kind of just figure out my space. That portion of the business lasted for probably like a year and a half because I realized that's not what I wanted to do. I have a skill of, project management. I have a skill of community work. I have a skill of fundraising. I have a skill of being a bridge builder, I believe. But my heart is with working with young people. And so I needed to figure out, no, this is not going to work for me. But I also enjoy working with businesses. So took a couple of months to kind of figure out who I really wanted to be and how I wanted to show up in this space. And so I rebranded the organization from events to business consultations, teaching financial education, particularly with young people, also helping to organize community functions. So that's still events, but not my base, but it's events with a social cause. Doing things like writing grants, helping to try to align businesses. And so that's the space that I serve in now. And I actually like it better than just doing events. So anybody who I see that needs like event services, I usually pass it along because I now have a Rolodex, that sounds kind of old, right?
That
yeah.
is
I get it.
old,
I
but
understand.
that is, I'm not. You
Wow.
was young. You was young from the beginning all the way to that moment.
I remember.
Right there, you just showed.
Right there? Yeah.
I'm gonna edit that because you still fine like wine, but I'm gonna edit that part.
You better not edit
I know
that.
what Rolodex is.
You put your age way out there, but it's all good though.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, so I have a list. I'll still call it a Rolodex. I don't care. Of small businesses that can utilize the business. So if it's not something I do, I'm happy to pass that along. So right now what I'm working on, I'm actually, the co-host of the Brownsville Minute. That came as a result of wanting to close the gap in communicating residents, Ocean Hill, Brownsville, because I have the privilege of seeing a lot of emails. I'm on a lot of email databases. And I found that when you talk to the average resident, they're not getting the information. They're looking on social media. They are looking at videos because when this pandemic first started, I don't know if you all heard about the 5G thing that was popping off. And so I'm like, where are they getting this from? Videos, right? video, social media. So my thing was, and I brought back to our team, was that we should just do the Brownsville Minute, and we're now in 11 episodes of it, and
Go.
just bring it on.
What is the Brownsville Minute
Yeah.
like, or what is that? I
Okay.
know.
Oh yes. So the Brownsville Minute is a weekly broadcast where we bring on average, residents, community-based organizations, and other stakeholders, where we come and we talk about things that are happening in a community. So, for example, we had the local elections, we have the census. So, I pull in some of the community faces that are not normally seen to elevate them to, if they have fundraising, needs, I tell them to talk about it. But the whole premise of it is that it's a community conscious conversation that we're having, looking to change the narrative of how Brownsville is perceived, and having the individuals who come on, including myself, to own the narrative, and have it centered in love and unity. That's the whole basis of it. And so we start off with giving community updates, if there are food distributions, if there are jobs, if the census is happening, which it still is, and I always try to remind people about the importance of the census. If there are any opportunities for entrepreneurs, I post that, and then I have a conversation with, a guest, and also young people have, had the courage to come on. So that really made me excited when they thought I was cool. So
Where can they find? So they find this on social media or on YouTube, the community.
both.
And
So
okay.
yeah, so on both. It's actually broadcast live at the Community Board 16 page on Facebook, and
Okay.
also on YouTube as well. I also connected it to my business page 11375, so it's on YouTube and also on Facebook.
How do you because in the journey that you've been sharing, there's a lot of moments where you have your ups and downs, and then you have moments where you're doing something, and then you have a moment where you're honest with yourself, like, well, this was fun while it lasted, but I want to change it because this is not really what I want to do. And I think that's something that a lot of us face in life, and no matter what age that we are. And I want to know from you, like, how difficult is that for you to finally reach that moment, like, okay, I've been rocking with this for a minute, but it's truly not me. I need to mold it somewhere else, and I need to go leap somewhere else and go. Because a lot of people will potentially just stay there and let that fear not budge to do anything else. But for you, it seems like, yeah, you had those moments, you had those fears, but something still pushed you to be like, well, what do I have to lose? I'm gonna go change it anyway. So in those moments, what did that do for you, and how did you overcome those hurdles?
I'm still overcoming, right? So
Yeah,
let's
and that's
start
great.
there.
And that's great.
I'm
But
still overcoming.
but the thing is, like, you keep pushing. And I love
Right.
that about you in that story. No matter that you have these tough moments, you still push through. No matter how long it might have took you, you still go to the next level. So, like, explain that for us, to, like, yeah, I'm only human, I'm still overcoming it, but what was that drive to, like, I'm not going to stay here?
So the constant for me now is knowing that I always can do better, right? For myself. I have like this vision on what I imagine my life to be. Um, I always wanted to have, something that I can say that, when I leave this earth, honestly, that I actually did something productive, like really productive, and that I left and I made impact. So for me, it's almost like this relentless drive to do better for myself. They always say that you're your own worst competition, and so I'm constantly saying, and let me just pull back a bit. I have a vision on my life. It's a vision, right? It may not measure with what God may have for me, but I know that I have a vision on what I need to do. So I need to have like a foundation as to what I can work for. So, if I wanted to have a business, I needed to start, right? I couldn't just sit back and be like, oh, I wish. I needed to get started, even if I didn't have, all the tools, necessary. So just continuing to know and having, something written down for myself is what keeps me moving. The other thing is knowing that a lot of times I'm functioning scared, if that makes any sense with you, because,
Yeah, absolutely.
You're always crossing over into
The unknown.
unknown territory, unless you have like a mentor or someone that you're following, in a similar path. So when I became a mother, and I'm always pointing to how much of a blessing that children are. Is hard, but it's a blessing. And my daughter Savannah has really calmed me a lot. She has helped me to kind of tweak where I thought I was going to be, the top CEO of a Fortune 500 company and yada, yada, yada. But I realized I needed to kind of, create something that could be a true legacy for now my family. And so my drive is just to keep moving, right? Because I have this vision on what I want my life to be like. It's not perfect. It's not an easy road, but I just know that, okay, well, this didn't work. So you asked about, the transition of knowing when to stop and when to keep going. I don't like pain. So when it starts to hurt me on a consistent basis, I I give it some time, right? And this is me being responsible, saying, okay, um, is it still working? And it's a difference between pain and being uncomfortable, right? That's how I
Yeah.
define it. If it's constantly not honoring my soul and my spirit, then we gotta go, right? And again, I always lend for opportunity for it to correct itself. I think back on relationships, right? You know, before I got married, I was in, long-term relationships. And, sometimes you kind of like think, oh, I shouldn't have stayed that long. Blah, blah, blah. But that's a process that we all go through because everything has an opportunity to course correct, right? If it doesn't course correct, then you're not honoring your soul. You're not. And so at that point, you just got to bow out gracefully and just keep going. And so understanding that for me was, I try to use those same principles that, I kind of check out a little bit earlier instead of having it, sit and wallow in it. I don't want to sit and wallow in it as much anymore. I kind of like give it some reasonable time and then I walk away from it. But I make sure that I'm like at a consistency and saying, is it fair? Is it my attitude? Is it my ego? So I go through all those internal checkpoints before I like walk away from it. And that's with anything now.
That to me, I was gonna ask you, like, if there was someone who was young or anyone who wanted to start their own business and they didn't know, they didn't have the tools yet. But what you said is kind of like, that's kind of like giving you a little bit of the tools of what it is to start a business, because you have to know your vision, you have to know yourself, you have to know what your drive is, what feeds your soul. And what else do you would offer somebody who wants to start their business but doesn't know how to start? Like, what advice would you give them?
So first, I teach my clients, right? The first thing you do is just do a brain dump, right? Understanding who you are and what you can do. And again, it does change, right? As you start to grow, I would just tell you to start, but just as you start to grow and develop and you writing down, maybe I want to service, you know, young people, or maybe I want to, open up or make an app. Just write out everything, right? Because writing out, it's something about when you put pen to a pad. And I know that we're on, phones, etc. You could do the same thing, but I know for me, when I put like the pen to the pad, I just feel like real creative, right?
Mhm.
And so, I encourage, anyone who's looking to start, parents, for sure. Like, even if you have to work for someone else while you're funding your dream, I would say do so. Because entrepreneurship, I do this full time and it's not easy. And it got even harder as we entered into this pandemic because we together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If there's an eighth day, there's another day that's been added. We all together. And it's challenging. So, start it, right? Write everything down and then kind of think through, do your market research, right? And what I mean by market research, see what's out there. Does what are you doing, plan to do, does it already exist? And if it exists, sometimes you may be able to tweak what already exists, because I believe that nothing is new under the sun. We haven't yet discovered everything yet. So sometimes doing that, or even, creating a small establishment and collaborating with another organization that exists. But definitely the start is writing, doing that brain dump and making sure, not really making sure, because you're not going to have everything, outlined, but just having like an idea and a level of confidence that you can sell your products and services to someone else.
Before we go to our segment, there was something that popped in my head that I wanted to ask you. You learned so many lessons from people that been there for you, and you mentioned your grandmother and the guy that took you in as well. I want to know one lesson from each of them that was valuable that you still use today that you think will be beneficial for someone who's young hearing it. So like your grandmother, what was something that she taught you that was like, oh, still to this day, like every now and then that lesson comes up. I want to share that to anyone young who's listening. And then the guy who took you in as well, what was one lesson that he gave to you?
Can I curse?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. So with my grandmother, the one lesson that I think she taught, particularly for me, but I think she taught all her grands, is pretty much don't take no shit from nobody. And what that means is that, you have to understand that you are a valuable person, that folks can't take advantage of you in any form, business, etc. So that was my grandmother. She was really very strict, but I understood as I, have had conversations with my uncles as to where that came from. So yeah, we definitely can't allow people to take advantage of us. But in her language, it was like, don't let anybody, don't take no shit from nobody, period. The Keith Sally taught us the value of giving back with who you are as a person. Like your give back is showing up and being present for others. You may not have all the tools. You may not have like a lot of money, because as I think about it, he was just a working middle class person. He had his own, and I always have to emphasize that he had his own family, but he had a whole squad of us. It probably was like 50 kids. He didn't have a specialized program or anything, but he would find a way for all of us.
So beautiful.
For all of us. So for me, I'm not rich monetarily, but in other realms,
physically
like,
and spiritually,
when I am full, right? And so I know that, if, while I don't want to leave this earth right now, that if, it was my time, that I would have like a genuine satisfaction that I actually did something.
Yeah, I feel like you have touched a lot of people in the time that you've been here, and I think that's a beautiful and amazing thing. And I know for me, I'm a prime example of that. So that the lessons that you helped to share with me, and just being a friendship that you gave to me, that has been a gift, and it has helped me in my life and continues to help me. So I know that even if you help, even though it's like the small amount of time that we knew each other, and you helped me tremendously, I just could only imagine everyone else that you encountered, how much you helped them and through the community as well. So
You're trying to get me right.
You go ahead and cry. This will be the second time. That'd be a record. But it's so true. Like, I didn't know you all my life. I just knew you from college. And then when I came, then there was a gap because I still was in college for like another 2 years. Then I came back, and then we just connected again. We hung out. We watched comedy. You came to my shows, I would say, we probably saw each other less than 20 times in a whole lifetime. But in that moment, every time that we spent has been impactful and powerful. And I could only imagine everyone else that you have touched. You know, that you've been there for so long. And I know, like, your daughter is blessed to have you, and she's blessed to have each other. So I want to thank you, which I always do, but I want to thank you on here as well for being that person, for being a genuine, true, wholehearted, caring, spiritual, and loving person. Because there's a lot of us out there, but sometimes we either lose it or we just stop being a human being. And it sucks when we lose the humanity that we was born with, you know, to love and care for someone naturally, because that is a gift that whatever you believe in, whether it's a God, whether it's an alien, whatever, they gave us that gift inside us when we came in. You know, even if you're a negative person, you still have that gift to love again. You're just choosing a different route. So yeah. So you can keep crying because we're gonna go to another segment.
Got me.
So this segment is called Let's Look Inside. And we're not looking for like long, these are just quick questions. And then whatever comes to your mind. We're not looking for something so long. And,
Okay.
And this one is the first question for this segment is called what do you love about yourself?
My smile. Like, I know that I love my smile. Yeah.
Awesome.
My smile.
I like it.
Yeah, my smile.
The
Yep.
second question is, what does the American dream mean to you?
Nothing today. Nothing today. Nothing today. It means creating something new. That's what it means.
Nice.
It's not what's typical.
It's
So
you.
Aww, that was perfect.
That's so beautiful.
You gonna cry again? That's the third time. Damn, we got a good one.
Oh my God, that's so beautiful.
That
I'm
was-
crying.
That was beautiful. That was a message, and I gave her a message too. And now the baby came out of nowhere, give her a message.
oh man, y'all jacking me up today. Oh man.
Wow, the American dream is you. That is so true.
You
I
made me
agree with
you
that.
made me happy. You made me really happy, Savannah. Like you always do, but you made me really
Was
happy.
this happy?
Yes, it's a sad happy. Yes.
I think it's you.
Okay, you gonna get me? Okay, I love you. Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. All right.
Beautiful.
That's a kiss for me.
The last question is, if the average lifespan was 40 years old, how would you live your life differently?
Whew. Wow. Wow. Okay, give me a moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wow.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Wow.
I had chocolate on my teeth.
Okay, go get it off your teeth. Go brush your teeth so your breath won't stink. We don't want that happening through the screen.
I can brush my teeth.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna come back.
Okay. Differently. Wow. I probably would have started entrepreneurship earlier out of high school had I had the tools. I also would have left relationships earlier than later, even though because I think I stayed in some relationships way too long. I just way too long. So that's two. And I would have saved a lot more money. I would save a lot more money. Lots. Lots.
All right. Well, you're going to cry again. This is the fourth
Yes.
time because this is the end of the interview.
You are now checking out
The Win Podcast
where the everyday people
are the celebrities.
so let's get to know them.